Hello, friends. October 13th, 1972, a small Uruguayan aircraft took off, carrying a rugby team, their friends and family. The flight from Uruguay to Santiago, Chile, should have taken only 3 hours. But on the way stood the mighty Andes, the world's longest mountain range, with peaks so high they scraped the clouds, beautiful but deadly. And on that day, those mountains would change 45 lives forever. The crash. At first, the flight was smooth. But as the plane approached the Andes, the weather turned rough. Thick clouds surrounded the aircraft, alarms went off, and the pilot suddenly saw what was ahead, a towering mountain. They pulled the plane up with all their strength, but it was too late. The tail hit first, ripping away with several passengers. Then a wing broke off. The rest of the fuselage slammed into a glacier and slid, hundreds of meters down the icy slope at terrifying speed. The cockpit was crushed, the pilots were killed instantly, and wreckage lay scattered across the snow. Incredibly, 33 of the 45 passengers were still alive, but they were stranded at nearly 12,000 feet, with freezing winds, no shelter, and no food supply. Their nightmare had just begun. The struggle. The survivors used the shattered fuselage as a shelter. They blocked the open end with luggage and snow to keep out the bitter cold. But many were injured. 2 medical students on board, Roberto Canessa and Gustavo Zerbino, tried desperately to treat the wounded. Search planes flew above in the following days. The survivors waved, shouted, even used suitcases to form a giant SOS in the snow. But the white plane blended with the white mountains, and no one saw them. After a week, the search was called off. The world believed they were dead. Food quickly ran out. They rationed the little chocolate and wine they had, but it wasn't enough. At nearly 4,000 meters, there were no animals, no plants, nothing to eat. At last, facing certain death, they made a decision that horrified them. They would have to survive by eating the flesh of those who had already died in the crash. It was a choice no one should ever have to make, but it was the only way to stay alive. As days turned into weeks, conditions grew worse. Temperatures dropped below -30, snow blindness damaged their eyes. Then one night, an avalanche buried the fuselage, killing 8 more. Now only 19 remained. The escape. The survivors realized no rescue was coming. If they wanted to live, they would have to save themselves. 3 of the strongest, Fernando Parado, Roberto Canessa, and Antonio Vizintin, set out across the mountains with only makeshift clothes and a sleeping bag sewn from insulation. Climbing icy slopes without gear, they walked for days. When food ran low, Vizintin returned to the crash site, leaving Parado and Canessa to push forward. After 9 brutal days, frostbitten and exhausted, they finally saw signs of life, cattle grazing in a valley, and then a man on horseback. The man could not cross the river to reach them, but he returned the next day with paper and a pencil. Parado wrote a desperate note. "I come from a plane that crashed in the mountains. We are 14 survivors. We need help." Rescue and legacy. Soon helicopters were sent. After 72 unimaginable days in the Andes, the last of the survivors were finally rescued. Out of 45 people, 16 lived to tell the tale. This tragedy became known worldwide as the miracle of the Andes. It remains one of the most extraordinary survival stories in history, of courage, desperation, and the unbreakable will to live.